Welcome to Lost Love Mystery, where every story unravels a secret. So, let's dive into another story. I was hunched over my desk, going through the day's emails when one particular message caught my eye. From Gavin Mitchell, subject, a proposal. My brow furrowed as I read the cryptic email. From my wife Rachel's boss, Max, I'd like to discuss a significant matter with you and Rachel, a proposal of sorts. Can we meet for dinner this week? Leaning back in my chair, I scratched my chin. A proposal? What the hell is that weasel up to now? My mind drifted to Rachel's recent behavior, the late nights at the office, the hushed phone conversations. I had a nagging suspicion she was hiding something from me. With a heavy sigh, I typed out a reply, "Sure, Gavin. Name the time and place." Maybe this proposal would finally shed some light on what was really going on. 3 days later, I found myself sitting across from Rachel and Gavin Mitchell in a private dining room at one of the city's most upscale restaurants. "All Max," Gavin began, that smug grin plastered on his face. "I'm sure you're wondering what this is all about." I gave a curt nod, my jaw clenched. Gavin cleared his throat. "You see, over the past few months, Rachel and I have developed a unique bond." My eyes narrowed as I glanced at my wife. She kept her gaze fixed on the tablecloth, her expression unreadable. "What exactly are you saying?" I asked, my voice low and controlled. Gavin leaned forward, that infuriating smirk never leaving his face. "Rachel and I want to have a child together, and I'm prepared to pay you handsomely for your permission." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the blood drain from my face as I struggled to process what he just said. "You want my wife to have your baby?" I stammered, shooting a glance at Rachel. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" Al finally met my gaze, her eyes swimming with tears. "Max, please let me explain." But I held up a hand, shaking my head in disbelief. "Not another word," I said through gritted teeth. Turning back to Gavin, I forced a tight smile. "You'll have my answer soon enough." The drive home was utterly silent, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Rachel opened her mouth a few times, as if to speak, but I shot her a withering glance that shut her up immediately. As we pulled into the driveway, I killed the engine and sat there, gripping the steering. Well, until my knuckles turned white. "Max, listen, I can't." "Not a word," I growled, cutting her off. "Not until we're inside." I stormed into the house, Rachel trailing behind me like a scolded child. Once we were in the living room, I whirled on her, my control finally snapping. "What the actual fuck, Rachel?" I shouted, my hands balling into fists. "You want to have that smarmy bastard's baby? How could you do this to me?" "To us?" Rachel flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Max, please, you have to understand." "Understand what?" I spat, shaking my head in disgust. "That my wife has been sneaking around behind my back, sleeping with her boss." "It's not like that," she cried, wringing her hands. "Gavin and I, we have a connection, a future together." I let out a bitter laugh. "A future? Are you delusional?" Turning on my heel, I strode toward my study, slamming the door behind me. I needed to be alone to process this gut-wrenching betrayal. As I sank into the chair behind my desk, only one thought consumed me: revenge. I sat in my study, the dim lamp casting an eerie glow over the mahogany desk. The betrayal still stung, like a knife twisting in my gut. But the anger, that burned hotter than any fire. Revenge, that's all I could think about. Gavin Mitchell, that smug bastard, had crossed a line. And Rachel, my wife, my supposed partner, she was just as guilty. I pulled out a fresh legal pad and grabbed a pen, scribbling furiously. A plan was forming, one that would bring them both to their knees. One was wealthy, no doubt, but he'd made his fortune through shady deals and cutting corners. Everyone in the business world knew it, even if they couldn't prove it. A cruel smile twisted my lips. "Well, Gavin, let's see how you like having your dirty laundry aired out for all to see." I was going to dig up every CD secret, every incriminating piece of evidence I could find. Tax evasion, corporate fraud, you name it. And when I had enough to bury that son of a bitch, I'd make sure the whole thing was. All world knew what a lying, cheating scumbag he really was. As for Rachel, she'd help me take him down, one way or another. And if she refused, a dark chuckle rumbled in my throat. Then you can join your precious Gavin behind bars, my dear. The next few days were a blur of frantic research and information gathering. I pored over financial records, scoured the deep web, and even reached out to an old friend, Kevin, an ex-cop who owed me a favor. You know that Mitchell guy, right? I asked over the phone one night. Wealthy prick. Runs the big tech firm downtown, Kevin grunted in affirmation. Yeah, I've heard of him. Slippery as they come. Well, I need you to dig up anything you can find on his illegal dealings. Tax fraud, embezzlement, shady business practices, the works. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You sure you want to go down this road, Max? Things like Mitchell, they don't mess around. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Don't worry about me, Kev. Just get me that evidence, and I'll take care of the rest. True to his word, Kevin delivered. A few days later, a thick manila envelope arrived at my office, stuffed with documents, photos, even audio recordings detailing Gavin's numerous crimes. I flipped through the damning evidence, that twisted smile returning. Gotcha. You son of a bitch. We need to talk. Rachel looked up from the couch, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Bae, look at me. Save it, I snapped, tossing the manila envelope onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud, spilling its incriminating contents across the glass surface. Rachel's eyes went wide as she took in the photos, the documents, all the proof of her precious Gavin's misdeeds. You can't be serious, she whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. How did you? How I got that evidence isn't important, I said coldly, leveling her with an icy stare. What matters is what I plan to do with it. Rachel shook her head frantically. Max, please, I never meant for any of this to happen. Oh, spare me the waterworks, I sneered. You made your bed, Rachel. Now you can lie in it. Her bottom lip trembled as she met my gaze. What are you going to do? A cruel smile twisted my mouth. I'm going to destroy Gavin Mitchell, ruin him, just like he tried to ruin our marriage. Rachel's eyes went wide with shock and, was that a flicker of fear? Good. And you? I continued, my voice low and dangerous. You're going to help me. She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, silencing her. You can join your lover behind bars when this is all over. Your choice. Rachel's shoulders slumped in defeat. What do you want me to do? My smile widened. Everything was falling into place. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Rachel and I were officially severed, at least on paper. But in reality, she was still a crucial pawn in my game. Are you sure about this, Max? She asked, wringing her hands as we pulled up to Gavin's sprawling mansion. If he finds out what we're up to, I shot her a look that shut her up instantly. Just stick to the script, play your part, and everything will be fine. Rachel swallowed hard and nodded. I could see the fear in her eyes. Fear of Gavin. Fear of what I might do if she screwed this up. Good. She needed to be scared. We were ushered into Gavin's study, that same self-satisfied smirk plastered across his face. Well, he purred, eyeing Rachel like a piece of meat. If it isn't the happy couple, I forced a tight smile. We've given your proposal a lot of thought, Gavin, and we'd like to discuss it further. Gavin's grin widened, and he gestured for us to take a seat. By all means, let's talk terms. As they droned on about figures and arrangements, I carefully slipped a tiny recording device from my pocket, planting it beneath a stack of books on his desk. My heart was pounding, but I kept my expression neutral. It seems we have a deal, Gavin said at last, extending his hand. I took it, giving it a firm shake. Indeed we do. The hard part was over. Now it was time to watch Gavin's world crumble around him. A few days later, the first bombshell dropped. An anonymous source had leaked evidence of Gavin's numerous criminal activities to the press. Tax evasion, embezzlement, corporate fraud, you name it. Within hours, it was all over the news. Reporters were camped outside Gavin's office, his home, hounding him for answers. And then, just as the fires were really starting to blaze, I released the piece to resistance. The recording from his study detailing our entire conversation about his depraved proposal. The backlash was swift and merciless. Gavin's reputation and his company went up in flames. Corporate sponsors pulled out left and right. Stock prices plummeted, and employees resigned. In droves. And to put the final nail in his coffin, I made sure law enforcement got their hands on the evidence, too. Gavin was arrested on multiple charges, hauled off in handcuffs as the media circus captured every humiliating moment. I watched it all unfold from the comfort of my new apartment, a satisfied smile on my face. Revenge, as they say, is a dish best served cold. The ringing of my phone shattered the silence. I checked the caller ID and scoffed. Rachel, I muttered, hitting the answer button. To what do I owe this pleasure? Max, her voice was thick with tears. Please, you have to help me. I have nothing left. No job. No money. Gavin's going to jail and I? And you what? I cut her off, unable to keep the bitterness from seeping into my tone. Expected me to welcome you back with open arms after you betrayed me? Silence on the other end. Max, please. She sobbed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'd heard enough. Bye. Rachel. I ended the call and tossed the phone aside, leaning back in my chair, through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I could see the city skyline stretching out before me, glittering in the dying rays of the sunset. A new life. I'm used, free from the lies and the heartache. All because I'd been willing to play dirty. My lips curved into a self-satisfied smile. Sometimes being ruthless was the only way to win.